Hi, my name is Steve Baker and I've been a harmonica player for almost all of my adult life. I started playing in the summer of 1969 by complete coincidence, because I was always somebody who was classified as utterly non-musical in school, and I basically believed the music teachers. I never tried any musical instrument until I was about just approaching my 16th birthday, when I saw a harmonica on the mantelpiece of a friend's bedroom. And I saw this really cool looking blue box with Echo Super Vamper on it. And I took it out of the box, blew into it, and basically I was hooked. I've never had one out of my hand since. I was listening at that time to the sort of stuff that was fashionable. I listened to Cream, or Wheels of Fire had just come out. I was listening to that. I listened to Donovan, who played a bit of harmonica in the sort of style of Bob Dylan. I was familiar with Bob Dylan's records. And then the guy who had the harmonica, he lent me two seminal records, which basically were my basis for learning, which was the first Paul Butterfield blues band LP on Elektra, which was probably the first white blues harmonica record of all time, and an LP by an English guy who unfortunately died young, also like Butterfield, called Duster Bennett, who was a friend of Peter Green, the original Fleetwood Mac guitarist. And Duster Bennett was a one-man band, and he was a great harmonica player, absolutely killer, very original. And for some reason I found him more accessible than Butterfield, so I learnt to play by trying to copy the songs on the record, and I just played until I basically got them halfway right. It was lucky, really, I suppose. I met Dick Bird, with whom I was playing on the sessions last night, a couple of years later when we were both 19, and he was already then a great finger-picking guitarist. And we started playing together just sort of, for fun, playing music around the campfire every night, and that's when Dick and I started really playing together. And this was always my attitude to doing it. I'm interested in the spirit, the communicative side, and the thing of the people coming together, yeah? Because that is what is the cool thing about it. It's about energy. It's not about virtuosity or who's better, because this, in my opinion, is nonsense. I don't really care who's better. It's a very subjective thing. And in art, how on earth can you say that something, you can judge certain things, technique, you can, but there are many artists who only possess a rudimentary command of technique, but their inner passion and their desire to communicate enables them to use it in a way which really says something. And there are many brilliant technicians who unfortunately have nothing to say. You know what I mean? The sort of big time of British blues was the late 60s, and we grew up in the punk era, even though we didn't actually, know anything about punk music or listen to it. Have Mercy, our band at that time, was formed in the same London at exactly the same time that brought forth the Sex Pistols and the Clash. And in fact, when we came to Germany, we went into the recording studio to record our first LP as Have Mercy at exactly the same time as the Clash went into the studio in London and recorded the Clash. It was February 1977, yeah? And so it was like, it was at the same time and it was the same energy. It wasn't the same music, but the spirit of it was this wild yobbos playing sort of music that had something vaguely to do with the blues, with unbelievable high energy, and it was attitude. It was all about attitude, really. And so it was based on the blues, but we weren't like these very sort of serious blues chaps who were, oh, we want to, play real authentic blues, because we thought, well, we're not black and we're not from Chicago. So we just play the music like we feel it. And we're a bunch of sort of young lads from South London, and some of us were Americans. So it was a very different thing, and fortunately we never tried to be black, because we would of course have failed dismally. I played for about 10 years with Tony Sheridan, who used to have the Beatles as his backing band. He was unfortunately advised to fire them, and did. They said, "Tony, you're a big star, you don't need these guys." And he fired them, which was, or at least so I was told. I mean, it was not a good career move. And we were basically, I suppose, a bunch of dropouts, you know. And with one or two exceptions, one or two of the people had, you know, studied or that. But so when we came to Hamburg and we found that we were getting paid to play music and could actually make a reasonable living, we thought it was fantastic. And the rest just developed out of that, really. I started getting, I think in about '78, I started getting the first offers to work as a studio musician, to play on other people's records. And I thought, oh great, I'll go and do this. You know, I mean, I always liked country music, so go and play on a German country and western song, you know, because it wasn't that difficult. And yeah, it just sort of developed from there. But I probably realized I'd become a musician when I started getting studio work, because that is just a sort of confirmation that you must be on some kind of tolerable level, or they wouldn't be employing you, you know. I've been heavily influenced by other instruments. One of my major influences has been guitarists. I spent about 4 or 5 years where I really only listened to American West Coast music. And so I was living on a sort of diet of the Grateful Dead and Steve Miller and the Allman Brothers. And I was very heavily influenced by the Grateful Dead, so Jerry Garcia as a melodic influence. Also Dickie Betts from the Allman Brothers Band, who was a great guitar player, and I pinched a whole load of ideas about modal phrasing from him. And Keith Richards, because I borrowed quite a lot of his ideas about, or his way of playing rock and roll riffs, and because I played a lot of rock and roll. And I spent quite a lot of time in the early '80s playing rock bands, not playing blues in the traditional sense really at all. I've never been a blues harmonica purist. I love blues harmonica and I certainly play it, but I've never been a purist, so I've never really attempted to break down exactly what some great player does and try to imitate it. I basically developed a style which was more melodic than most blues harmonica players. This was also helped a great deal by listening to sax players. And I was heavily influenced by Junior Walker and the All-Stars, because I realized when I saw him live that he's basically playing very funky sort of 16th beat. You can do that easily on the harmonica, and the mode, the pentatonic mode, is there. So you just play it like that. I think in terms of music, not in terms of harp riffs all the time, whereas many harmonicas, especially in blues, tend to think in sequences of muscle movement. I think in terms of notes, not written notation, I think of numbers. So I would say that I'm a musician who plays harmonica, if you know what I mean. It just happens to be the medium that I use to express my music with. And it's fairly wide-ranging stylistically. I'm at home in a reasonable number of styles. Anything, jazz is not my number because I'm not that how should I put it, not that sophisticated a musician, but I borrow a lot of ideas from jazz. Same as I borrow ideas from anywhere where I find good ones that I can, you know, make my own. And also, I would say I've got a very recognizable tone, or at least that's what people tell me. They tell me they can recognize me immediately. So I suppose, you know, it's a mixture of a whole lot of different elements which are not really coming from blues harmonica, but from a much wider range of different musical styles. My purpose when I play music, I want to actually reach out and touch the heart of the listener, yeah? And I want to make them, you know, feel the desire to dance. It should really have the rhythmic component is very important, and the emotional component is very, very important, because if you don't feel it, how are you going to communicate it to somebody else? You can only communicate something which comes out of your own life.